Welcome to Channels Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. Over the next half hour, we'll be looking beyond the business headlines by giving you in-depth perspective on the stories that are affecting all of us. Coming up on today's show, we'll be having a sit-down with renowned interior architect Daniel Taylor, MBE. Daniel is the founder and CEO of the Metro Design Group, one of the finest design and build competitors in Britain. Before Daniel joins me, here's our business correspondent Simon Pusey with a breakdown of this week's headline-grabbing stories.
Yes, thank you, Juliana. They are some of the biggest companies on the planet, and they are usually in competition with each other. But now Amazon, Google, Apple and Zigbee Alliance have announced a rare partnership that's focused on making smart homes easier for everyone. Amazon, Google and Apple are all competing for people to buy products that work with their in-home systems and are still trying to build a solution that's simple for everyone to use. But the competition itself has created a really confusing landscape for both consumers and manufacturers of smart home products. That's why companies that typically compete against one another are teaming up. It's called Project Connected Home over IP, and it will work to create a new standard for the smart home so that people can buy products knowing that they'll work with the systems they have at home and that they're secure. A logo on the gadget boxes will let customers know if it's built and supported by Project Connected Home over IP or not. The group will focus firstly on physical safety smart home devices such as smoke alarms and CO2 sensors, smart doors and locks, security systems, electrical plugs, window shades and HVAC controls, before expanding into other types of devices and commercial solutions. Now, the price of shares in suppliers to Boeing have tumbled earlier this week after the plane maker revealed it would pause production on its 737 MAX aircraft. Shares in Senior, which counts Boeing as one of its biggest customers, fell by as much as 9%. Meanwhile, shares in Meggitt and Melrose dropped by more than 1%. Earlier this week, Boeing confirmed it would halt production of the plane, which was grounded after 2 crashes, killed 346 people. Around 400 of the 737 MAX jets have been delivered to airlines around the world since the first one rolled off the production line back in 2017. But Boeing had orders for more than 4,000 of the planes, which cannot be delivered, of course, because of the global grounding. The company employs more than 2,500 people across 65 sites in the UK, while in the US they have more than 130,000 staff. And finally, the Bank of England has launched one of its most ambitious attempts to date to quantify the risk that climate change poses to the financial system. Banks and insurers will face climate stress tests in a similar way to the financial stress tests they already do. It is a project that could ultimately result in banks and insurers having to hold more capital to do certain kinds of business, and that could have a profound effect on the way the economy is funded. Bank officials told journalists that the value of every asset on the face of the planet will be affected by climate change. Where values change, there is financial risk, and the bank wants to measure it and then manage it. Large banks and insurance groups will be asked to go through their balance sheets almost asset by asset to assess the risks posed by a range of climate scenarios.
Thank you, Simon. Here are some other business news from across the globe. China has commissioned its first domestically built aircraft carrier. The commissioning of the 50,000-ton warship puts China in a small club of nations with multiple aircraft carriers. The unveiling has also added major firepower to the country's military ambitions as it faces tensions with South Taiwan, as well as the US and regional neighbours around the disputed South China Sea. The US Supreme Court has announced it would intervene on President Donald Trump's quest to keep his business and tax records private. Trump has vigorously protected his financial information by refusing to release his tax returns, a break in tradition from all other modern presidents. The Supreme Court plans to hear arguments in the spring and to hand down a ruling in June about the constitutional concept of separation of powers and the ability of Congress to demand information. The stalemate between French President Emmanuel Macron's government and labour unions deepened as France headed into a third week of transport strikes over the president's efforts to reform the country's pension system, threatening further turmoil during the busy holiday season. Both sides are hoping to reach some consensus before Christmas, with the prospect that continuing strikes over the holiday would alienate an increasingly frustrated public. A new UK-based venture has been created to disrupt the British Airways and Virgin Atlantic business model. during peak season. Over the next few days, tens of thousands of West Africans living in the diaspora will be returning home to celebrate Christmas, with some airlines charging as much as £2,000. A company called Black Star Airlines leased a private jet for 10 days over Christmas and New Year, offering return flights to Accra, Ghana for just £1,400. The expense behind the Great Return, as it's being called, isn't solely related to flights. Accommodation during peak Christmas season can set the diaspora back up to £400 per night in Cape Town, Nairobi, Addis Ababa, and of course Lagos, which is why so many are ditching hotels and are deciding to invest in property. For more on this, joining me via Skype from Lagos is Toby Yusuf, partner at the real estate development company Veritasi Homes. Toby Yusuf, it's been called the Great Return. Everybody seems to be going back to Africa, whether it's Cape Town, Accra, Lagos. They're going in from America and across Europe. But of course, we know not everybody can pay up to £400 or $400 a night for a hotel, and not everybody can stay on the island. So where are some of the affordable areas that people may not just rent hotels, but may be interested in putting down a deposit on a property?
All right, thank you. So it's interesting that a number of people are looking to come back. Nigeria welcomes them. So there are a number of interesting places as well that they can look into. Places like Isheri, not too far from Magodo. It's quite close to the airport, and it's got proximity to Lagos Ibadan Expressway. We can also look at places like Festac as well. Festac is a very good community where people can also look at it. It's quite affordable. Another area would be Magodo itself, especially for people that are looking for, gated community security as an add-on. They would look into those areas,
Let me ask, Toby, you've been doing this for a couple of years now in this real estate development. Do you think the diaspora are starting to get used to not living on the island, not living in Banana Island or Victoria Island, especially during peak seasons like Christmas and Easter? These areas that you've just mentioned, are they becoming more attractive, do you think?
I think that for people in diaspora, they are keen to some kind of service that they usually are used to. Things like good water, 24 hours electricity, security. So when they come back home, these are the kind of things that they look out for. So they naturally will be prone to live in areas that will provide all of those. So for any other part of Lagos that would offer that, they would be interested in it.
Okay, Toby, it is towards the end of the year. We've only got a couple of days left. What kind of trends should people be looking out for in 2020 when it comes to real estate? Especially because there have been, and you've even been here in London, there are so many Nigerian property investment exhibitions taking place, not just in London and Europe, but even in America. What should we look out for?
So particularly for real estate in Nigeria, there are a number of interesting trends that we should look out for. This year, there's so much in remittance, diaspora remittance coming into Nigeria, and you would agree with me that a part of that money comes into the real estate scene, like real estate investments in Nigeria. Another thing we should look out for is a lot of millennials being having the largest bracket of first-time homeowners. So they'll be the ones buying homes, buying properties, and all that here. And another thing we should look into is the fact that there'll be a rise in the uptake in mortgages. A number of people would look to take out mortgages that are available, especially now that the federal government is putting on stance to make sure that these things happen in record time. So I see people, I see young professionals, I see paid staff members for different companies taking up this opportunity. Another thing we could also look at is the choice for investment. People would tend to want to invest in areas that will give them a higher return on their investment. because at the end of the day, for them, it's just pure business. So
well, thank you, Toby, for your Christmas tips. So for those of us who are spending thousands going home this season, some of the tips are, save that £400 or £500 a night and invest in some property, potentially on the mainland of Nigeria. Toby Yusuf, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Now over to our main discussion. Design and design skills are right at the heart of the fourth industrial revolution. Creating better places, better products, better processes and better performance instigates growth and innovation. And according to recent estimates, the design economy generates £85.2 billion every year for Britain alone. Renowned interior architect Daniel Taylor MBE is right at the centre of design specialism. And for over 20 years, his award-winning company, the MDC Group, have created stunning spaces for the Conservative Party, the National Health Service and even the Bielsa State Government. Daniel Taylor has been awarded a fellowship of the Royal Society for the Encouragement of Arts, Manufacturers and Commerce, and he joins me in the studio now. Hi, Daniel.
Hi.
Welcome to Channels Business Global. I'm sorry that I've pulled you away from your Christmas shopping, but you can get onto that. This is your first time on TV. I'm shocked.
Yes, it is my first.
It's your first time. I promise I'll try to be gentle. Usually my viewers will know I don't start with statistics, but because the design economy generates so much money, I just had to start with this. There are over 78,000 design-focused companies like the MDC Group in the UK. But of course, when you started 20 years ago, it wasn't like that. Tell me
absolutely. In fact, I would say we were probably the only black-owned business I know of at my level.
Wow.
And when I say at my level, I'm talking about doing high-end quality interior design and fit out. Our first project, funny enough, was in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, where we worked during the Troubles, because people forget the Troubles only ended about 20 years ago. Yeah. Our business has been going 22, so we worked in
hostile environment.
Very much so. Yeah. And then our second job was to work for the Department of Agriculture for the United States government.
When did you realise that interior design, you could make money from it? Because it almost to me appears as if it's more of a Western concept, that design and looking good. You sat on our chairs and you were like, hang on a minute, is this stable and steady? When did you think, hang on, there's a market for this?
Well, I started with my degree as a product designer. So my degree is actually around the formation of product. Yeah. And when I came into the office environment revolution, the receptionist was also the switchboard operator. So back in those days, a typewriter was the means of getting a letter done. Yeah. A telex was the way of getting an international message done. So that's where my life started. And when you work from a product, you work from the person and work out, you start with creating the interior. So, and as a Virgo, I'm a very detailed person. I'm very tactile, want to control all elements. Yes. It made sense for me to be, I knew that I could be successful in that market. Plus as well, like with any brand which I created, you want to be different. And as the only pioneering black business at the time, it made it easy to do work with some of the big clients at the time we did. We did the first Facebook office, for instance, here, the Google office. We've done Skype, names which people will recognise. But when we were dealing with those clients, colour was never the issue for us. It was, we were good at our jobs. I was good at my job. My team was good to be able to deliver the facilities. And
that's why you're still there and a leader 22 years later. Again, because we've got a global audience here, and you travel quite a lot. You're going to be travelling in a couple of days. Does travelling out of Britain inspire you? Do you find that other countries see design in a very different way?
Absolutely. If I go back to the start of my own career, I was very fortunate to see a large part of the world through travel. So I've been to Czechoslovakia when it was Czechoslovakia, not Slovak and Czech Republic. When I've been to Doha, Qatar, when Doha only had one hotel.
Wow.
Been to Russia and Far East, Middle East.
Very unique architecture in Russia.
Absolutely. And knowledge is power. I believe I'm constantly learning, even though I haven't been picked up a book in years. I learn from my colleagues who I employ, and I take what they know and understand where the trends are and where the moods are. But I do encourage anybody to travel, to see the world, to open their eyes to cultures and taste and directions.
Absolutely, especially because we seem to be quite insular in Britain at the moment. We've run out of time in this part, but coming up, more chat with Daniel Taylor, MBE. See you after the break.